All right, welcome back, everybody. It's episode of the Brick Wall. I took a couple of weeks off because of Labor Day, and I was moving from New Orleans back to the Northeast to New Jersey, and I'm very pleased to come back with Jimmy Giliberti. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you. Good.
So,
It's really good to be here.
yeah, thanks. So I know you run Pagoni VR, manager of it for under the Glimpse Group, and we'll get into that and all the weeds in a minute. But first off, I always like to ask everyone, where are they located? Where are you?
Right now, New York. I'm actually bi-coastal though. Live in San Francisco and New York.
That's all. Well, in the tech space and in VR, it's probably a good idea to have a foot in both coasts.
Yep, no doubt.
Absolutely. So let's. I like to go back and see what people's career arcs and trajectory. What's your background with computer science and technology?
Well, I started out actually studying for architecture, and at the time had been doing computer work in high school, and this is way back with like punch tape and like call up by modem phone. So it was a while back, and thought that was just fun, and thought architecture was going to be my way to go. And I realized that I was still in love with the computer side of things, and switched over from architecture to computers. This was the University of Florida. Got my hands on an Apple II at that time and started programming that. And on the back of it, there was the operating system disk. And if you punched a hole on the side of it and turned it over, you could like write on the other side. And on the other side of it was a copy of Mystery House from Sierra Online. And I played that, and the dean came in and caught me playing games. This is, no, that's not what this is for, et cetera, et cetera. And this is when I was still in graduate school. And I said, okay, got it. And that's when IBM called up and needed someone to go and run this new project that they were doing, which eventually would be the IBM PC. They needed someone to do the first games for the PC. And I call up. In fact, I had already accepted the job with the National Security Agency and called them up while I was on my, they were still doing the security checks. I'm like, sorry, I've got something that I want to do more. And then went over to IBM and wound up working with Sierra Online with what we were doing together. And it turns out to be the first King's Quest. And so that's what started off a lot of the game industry right from there. And it was a neat time. You were banging at the hardware just to make it make sounds and get more colors on the screen. So that's how I got into the business. It was doing anything graphical, anything animation, anything eventually with video as well.
So do you think, being that you switched your career and went to grad school for it, do you think, the question really is, do you think that you had foresight into that and this explosion into gaming and PCs being in everyone's home?
I did, actually. I saw it really early and been fortunate to have seen a couple of things like that. So early on in the PC, working with games, and eventually the games got big enough that IBM just said, well, we're not going to be a part of that. We'll let the industry take care of it, which they did. I got into operating system development and eventually got into doing portables. Everything else was big desktops and things like that, so where portables would come in. But I had missed the animation side of things, missed the graphics, and that's when I wound up at Autodesk, which was a great marriage of my old architecture days, because Autodesk, AutoCAD, and they were trying to get this 3DS. At the time, it was 3DS DOS, and we were moving it over onto Windows NT and bigger platforms. And so my job was to get it as a published product. There was a guy named Gary Yost who's still around, and in fact, you can follow some of the stuff he's doing in VR, with VR work that he's doing with video. But he was the original 3DS DOS, and we kind of bought it from him as a published product and then started putting out as Autodesk. And that was 4 versions of it. So it was great to be back in the animation side of things again.
That's awesome. And it's awesome and exciting to know. I feel like so many people, like young and old, they march down the course that they're supposed to and do what they're supposed to, or they don't have the foresight or the ability to step back and hey, I'm good at this, but I want to do this and I want them to intersect. So I'm sure. Do you feel fortunate to to be able to have done that multiple times in your career?
I do, and I think always trying to remember what you are passionate about and watching where whatever you're doing kind of vectors off into that. So virtual reality is a good example of that. So the animation side and the graphic side of things, I mean, our Chimera product is a marriage of that actually, when you think about it. It's CGI backend, so we're creating these environments, and then we're blending my video side of things, which I love as well. So you're blasting in real-time streaming video into a virtual world. And so you have that, and you have the other side of things, which was mobile. I spent a lot of time with cell phones and mobile gaming and mobile, and so basically, if you were to pick up, I mean, inside these things, these are Android devices, right? So the time that I spent with cell phone work is also a vector. So it's just knowing in advance, kind of, you see that happening, and if you're projecting right, you can go and figure out where those things are going to align and just make sure you're there at the right time.
And I mean, so from when you started till now, I mean, have you ever had points in your career where, because you're always part of the action and part of, the situation, but have
Mhm.
you ever been wowed by the technology and just said, holy, I never, when I started my career, I never thought this would happen?
Um, there are some aha moments. There's no doubt about that. I think that anyone who is first put on a VR headset, you can talk about it, and you can, even the best orator can go and describe all of the things you feel about immersion and seeing things. That feeling of putting it on that first time is one of those things that you just don't forget. And I've been in sales in this business as well, and seeing that smile on somebody's face when they do it, they go, "Oh my God," that keeps you going. So industry wise, or other things that I've seen where I couldn't kind of believe it. Um, I think that each one of these, I think seeing it hit, I mean, that's the thing, that's the adrenaline for me, is seeing what could happen and then just watching it, run out. PC, 3D graphics, cell phones, and now VR. Again, you're just riding that wave. And so now, it's interesting watching here. Okay, here's one that I didn't expect. Chimera was supposed to be something that would marry local people who were watching what was going on, the presenter, whether it was a teacher or talent, et cetera, that didn't want to do anything different. They didn't want to be in a headset. They just wanted to do their thing, but they wanted to go and reach a bigger audience. So picture it from a student's point of view. I have a class where I'm in front of my teacher. Teacher's in the front, I'm back here. The same thing with a teacher. I have my class, but if I was a teacher that had online students or people who are remote, I usually was going and putting a whole other set of material together to deal with that type of teaching. With Chimera, you do it once. You're talking with the people that are in the room and the people who are remote, and they both feel like they're in the same class. The thing that I didn't expect was COVID-19, where now all of a sudden the local goes away. You can still do that. And now we're starting to see cohorts where you're seeing some students in and some people remote. But the impact of what we're doing now um, was a happenstance. That was a vector that, although it did cross, I hadn't expected that.
That's amazing. And I mean, obviously, what we're dealing with these days is unprecedented. But that, the fact that you have the solution that pops right in is, again, you were ahead of the times. Like, it seems like your trend. So I know you're talking about Chimera a bunch. Let's bring everyone into the light. How did you first get involved with the Glimpse Group, which is AR VR with 10 or 9 or 10 subsidiaries. You'll correct me. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I had actually spent a lot of time after some of the work I was doing with cell phone work and gaming and mobile products, um, going back into broadcast. So I'd run a studio or a set of studios at a place called Media One, and a lot of that was talent that was coming in for doing insert shots into news programs, things along those lines. Salesforce used to do their weekly shows at our location. So we had multiple studios. And so there was a lot of editing, there was a lot of technical directing, things along those lines. And one of the things that I was doing was live shows using TriCaster equipment from NewTek. And would then bring that equipment to shows. Seth Sokolow had one, which was the SF App Show. And early on, when mobile software first started coming onto the Apple products, he saw that. And we started having monthly get-togethers of people writing and putting out software for for the iPhone. So Uber launched at his show, Airbnb launched at his show, and I was the tech side of that. So I would come in. It was 5 minutes on stage with a host, and 5 minutes of questions, and I would tape it. And in fact, I was actually recording it, but I was also streaming it live, so we could see it and watch that happen. Now, did that with SF New Tech as well. Um, and then brought it to New York VR. So through an acquaintance, one of the original founders of um, the Glimpse Group was the founder of NYVR, and that's DJ Smith. And we started talking about what the broadcast side of VR is like, and we kind of danced around what was happening at Glimpse while I was coming to New York from San Francisco to do these gigs. And it just wound up that putting together Pagoni VR was just a natural thing, because most of the other subsidiaries also need that video work. So we supply outside our company, but we also supply inside the company with video services.
So let's dig more into Pagoni. I mean, what unique VR experiences and solutions do you offer? Like, or give us some examples outside and inside, or whatever you'd like.
Sure. So one of the things that we like to do is think, because we are in the services side of the business as well, is we see a lot of what almost anybody doing VR video needs. And that's why if you go to the site, you'll see something called VR Sidekick. That's one of the things that anybody who's creating video creates the thing, then they want to put it up on Vimeo or up on Facebook or on YouTube. A lot of times they will spend time saying, I just uploaded this huge file and it still treats it as flat video. Why? Well, you didn't inject the metadata. So you got to go back, inject the metadata, put the thing back in. And there's this like one tool, it's just a couple of check boxes. It's like it's 360. Is it stereo? No. And you really don't know what's going on there. And so we felt that there was a better way to go and do that. And so we created this thing that you could go and drag in your video onto this canvas. It would show you a snapshot of what that video actually is, so you could scrub it. And then it would tell you all the metadata itself, and then let you change it. So it's like, oh, it's monoscopic, and it's 360, or it's 180, and it's side by side. So you go click, 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 click. It tells you a whole bunch more about it as to the bandwidth of the of how it was recorded, what codec was used, and it lets you save it back out, so you know when you're going to put that thing back up that it should work. And it's not a paid thing. We just think it's the best thing to go and help the entire industry. And so we have that there. We started running into a situation where people were trying to show their content and they're getting stuck behind the actual device itself. You put something where somebody's never seen VR before, and I had mentioned before that smile on somebody's face that they've never seen VR. Well, the thing is, there's also that first time you put it against your face and actually getting to the point where you can experience VR for the first time. And it was usually something that was pretty hard. You get the thing on there, you put a controller in somebody's hand, and they hit the wrong button and they're out of the app. And you have to go and say, what do you see? Okay, you see that menu? And you got to go, and you go through all of that. And so what we were doing is we said, look, 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 look. We've got this thing called Festival Player. And it means that, okay, so here, as simple controllerless, you've got the thing loaded up with your content. You've got your movie you want someone to see. All you have to do is put it against their face, and it's basically, stop and play. 2 buttons. You put the thing on there, it's loaded up, and even the person who's curating it or at the show could just put it there and just go click, and it's running. And so that really helped people who are doing festivals to be able to get people through the lines and not have to get them caught up on, figuring out VR for the first time. Gary Yost, the person who I mentioned earlier, had done some work and was doing a show at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And he had like 40 headsets and a couple of people that were helping him do it. And he ran like 350 people a day through this thing. And it really helped. And it was a nice looking piece, and it had sonic sound. So that's another part of what Pagoni does. But what we've been focusing on lately is this thing of social VR, people wanting to get together. COVID, again, one of these things is I'm here in upstate New York, but I want to get together with other people on my staff. right? People who I work with, or people who I just want to hang with. And I can't do that, right? So now I can go and put the headset on, and social VR is all people getting together, but it's as an avatar. And that's not necessarily me. That's a representation of me, but it's not me. And here's a good example of this is my wife was still in San Francisco when this stuff hit. And we were deciding, and so Valentine's Day was the last time I'd been back to San Francisco. And we were deciding, does she come out here? Do I come out there? And it wasn't until late June that she eventually came out here. We felt it was good enough to, hit the airplanes, and she came out. So what we were doing at the time is she used Chimera. So she was able to put on, I had sent a go back to San Francisco, and she would put the thing on. She was in just kind of a nice, comfortable space, and it matched, and it just worked into where I am right here. And so she at least felt that she was with me. And for me, it was really interesting too, because I jumped in as an avatar as well during that to see what it looked like. And our two avatar hands just kind of like went and touched. And what was really amazing was I felt that,
Oh,
it
wow.
was that social side of it. Having not seen her for like 3 months, it was like, wow, and even the virtual touch still had an emotion to it. So that's what Pagoni's doing, is trying to bring this together. And so we talked about universities as being an aspect of that. So we worked with Temple University, and they had 30 students that basically knew they were going to be in this class as part of their graduate program, but they didn't expect that they were going to be doing it from home. Not all of them, right? So they already had the headsets, and they finished out the class just as they normally would with, each one of them had quests actually. Um, let's see, we're starting to see it with entertainment. So a band called Olio, and they're out of LA. Um, uh, Arif, the leader of the band, was up recently, and then we have some video up on the Pagoni site you can go and see on this. Had basically come in as a behind the scenes get to know the band thing. So he comes out, we had people in the stands that were just sitting there, and he talked with them directly. Says, here's who I am, here's the band, here's how we got together. This next song is, and he discussed, how the song was, how they decided they were going to write this particular one, threw out to the song, which we then played because I had captured a couple of sets of theirs in 3D in VR 180, and it went back and forth. Here's who we are. Whoop, go to the video, come back. So entertainment. Tom Briscoe is a professional comedian that is looking at doing this for live interactions. He was a cruise ship comic, and that's gotta kill you when it comes to from COVID-19, right? You can't get together as a group, and like cruise ships. So he's working to go and figure out, how do I go and make use of this technology to get to my audience? Um, and lastly, we also have houses of worship. I mean, when you think about community, that is community. So it may not be interactive. It may not be one of these things where we're interacting directly with the clergy, but it doesn't need to be that interactive. It just needs to be when you're in the services together, we can sing and pray together in unison. And we can do that. We're working on that as well.
That's, I mean, an amazing, chock full of, great and very cool things that you guys are doing. Answer. I appreciate that. I mean, so that, as a follow up to that, like, what's the holdup? Like, why, like, really two holdups. Like, why are we using avatars right now? And I think I know the answer to it, but you're the guy. And number two, why not further adoption? Like, headsets are now portable. You don't need the, big piece of hardware, the big computer.
Mhm.
We now have these portable headset, like you said, they're, based on, Android or, whatever technology. Though, again, like, why can't more folks be using this? Why can't I, have a headset on my grandmother who's 90 years old in Lima, Peru, and we can have some kind of connection like that? And the
Mhm.
story with your wife, obviously, as a side note, was, it's beautiful. And the fact that you felt that emotional connection through the headset is awesome, and means we're moving to move in that direction, with technology is very cool. So I'll let you answer those two.
Well, eventually we will get there. And I think that, for me, we've done this push of streaming video a couple of different ways, whether it's inside VR, where you get not only just the person, but the kind of surroundings around that person, and then you blend it in. We've done it with AR, where we key out or green screen out the person and then drop them onto whatever surface that you're looking at. I mean, I always consider that kind of the Princess Leia look. You know, you've got the Obi-Wan, you're our only hope, and we've done that. But then there's also but the idea of you and I being able to do this in VR or in some other AR, right now, the two things that are limiting that are the headsets, right? And we'll see what happens with Oculus tomorrow. Um, but getting headsets for people to go in and use my product, it is definitely a funnel right now. I mean, it's really preventing it from really taking off. But having multiple people streaming in at the same time, that's a bandwidth question. And so I'm hoping that as we get into 5G, as we start getting into some of these other technologies, that if we stay with the Star Wars theme, it isn't just Princess Leia, it's Jedi Council. You know, everybody's got enough bandwidth that everybody's streaming it. And we'll get there. But right now, I can go and get at least one person in. I can go and stream in secondary work. One of the things we have is a smart surface in front of you, so I can have somebody there and then also stream what I want to be showing, so teacher and materials. So bandwidth is the answer to the second one. So headsets, bandwidth, future. You know, I mean, everybody starts thinking about whether it's glasses that can control how much light is in, right? If you look at the kind of the steampunk type glasses, right? That if you had control of light going in and out, you have a Quest right now that kind of can do that because it's an inside out HMD, and it sees, you know, it's got cameras looking out and it's got the thing that blocks the light, so you can combine it. So it's almost XR. You know, eventually you'll have contacts that are nano things and it'll darken when it needs to, like transition lenses or something, and let you see what it wants you to see and let in what it wants you to let in. So future, but what we're doing now is all a step towards that. Whatever we're doing now doesn't get thrown away. It just makes it easier to do what we do.
Well, you answered my next question, which was I was going to say that you were always ahead of the curve, and I was going to ask you what, you know, some predictions for the future in VR. So I appreciate you, you know, being there. You know, let's pivot again. Like, you know, you mentioned COVID a couple of times and how it's been, you know, it's been good. It's you know, aided in the adoption of the technology, you know, especially on university campuses and in many other you know, ways. What have been challenges? Because I think everyone's faced challenges, you know, both personally and professionally during this time, and also, like, you know, there's been plenty of positives. But you know, it's called a brick wall because like, you're facing a challenge. Do you plow through? Do you pick a brick over? So, you know, what's been your biggest challenge with Pagoni, or, you know, in the space during the pandemic?
Well, let's say, okay, let's think sales cycle. So I would normally be out either on the road, being able to take the headset and say, hey, I have this wonderful thing. I want you to look at this and tell me what you think. Now, this is a thing where, in fact, I usually don't even go see people who I don't know, because that's basically opening up your closed system to, from a quarantine point of view, right? If everybody's shelter in place, here, put this on your face. You know, COVID is not exactly friendly right now with VR. So you tend to go and have your own personal headset or some way to go and just make sure it's nice and clean before you pass it on to somebody else. So that's affecting the sales cycle. It affects, because of the fact there aren't that many of them. I can't just have them around. I can't have somebody in the office. And we actually do have some things to make it easier to go and clean between, but it just takes longer, right? You know, we use gaskets and things like that you can go and either take off or clean or spray, and UV lights and all those things that you can go and do to clean it. But there's the health side of that. Travel in general, where I might say, come on down to the office, let's chat. That doesn't happen as much anymore. Now, because it's Chimera, you know, I can still do and show things off. It also means that I might find myself doing something like moving away from being VR only or HMD based only, to HMD plus maybe a desktop client, so that I can still participate in that virtual world, but I'm doing it as a window into it. So I've got my desktop in front of me, or my laptop in this case. I can see in, I can look around, I see all of the other avatars, and to them, I'm an avatar, and my mouse is letting me do things, but I don't need the headset to go and do it. Would I normally go that way strategically? No, I'd rather at least be, I'd like it to be all HMD. Everybody says, yeah, this is great, get me one. Um, so I'm having to go and do that as kind of plan B. And let me see if there's anything else on that one. Uh, and I think it's just the insurity for some people. I mean, I think if we think students, if we think anything along those lines, if most of the work that I did was in front of people, or 8 hours in front of people, um, it's interesting to see how many people can actually spend 8 hours inside VR. And we've actually done some studies like that, and had some people in Glimpse that have done it. We do our kind of strategic updates to each other twice a year, where all the subs get together. And one of the people on the team wasn't in New York; they were in the Midwest, but wanted to see each one of our presentations, and it was an 8-hour day. And she was in for 8 hours. I mean, we were on 40. It was like a band, 40 on, 20 off, and she did it. Said, you know. The only thing was like just basically keeping it on. Eventually, it's like it
Sliding
was
down the nose.
it was a physical thing over time. But the act of being, or the ability to be in and feel like they were part of the group, overshadowed kind of what it took to actually be there. So even with that, it was still worth it. But I think that what we're seeing in general, you also have to see how much time you're spending in the headset. So COVID again has an effect on just general work stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're lucky that you're in the space with the technology that allows you can at least cheat a little bit and test things out that and push towards that adoption. Because of the pandemic with it. So I know you touched upon education and all the things that Chimera does and Pagoni, but like, why can't, and again, you might not know the answer to this, but it's mostly hypothetical, but like, why can't, like, we're seeing in New York City all these problems in the fight, Mike Mulgrew, the UFT union head, and the mayor and the Department of Education are fighting, and you see this across the country, and there's this big debate, and kids go back to school, and then you see at universities. Why can't they just adopt? I mean, the headsets are $200. They're buying iPads for students. Why can't this be more widely adopted in full education systems? And what would that look like if someone called you today and said, I need X amount of headsets and we want to do X amount of classes, virtually?
Mm-hmm. I would love that situation to exist. If we're in that situation, yes, I could help. The challenge is, in fact, still that headset availability. And I'm really hoping that frees up in the near future. The Go had originally been like 199 and 299. I think I had picked this one up when it went down to about 149. So they are affordable.
Yeah.
But you can't get them now. In fact, I know some people who wanted to get in and get some Goes as it was going out, and they were paying premiums to third parties that still had them in new old stock, and they were going on Amazon for higher than their original price. The Quest has been harder. It went out of production, or they couldn't keep up, came back, and it's been hard. So if somebody came to me and said, I would like to do this and I need 200 headsets, I could not satisfy that right
Wow.
now. And that is a real limit to what we can do. But that's changing. And that's also everybody who's still in there, whether it's going to be Oculus or HTC or Pico, they're still moving. So there's this kind of hiccup in there. But Plan B says I can still help them, because I can still go and give them a desktop client, as an example, until those headsets come in. And I actually think that's going to be more of the case with the houses of worship too. I mean, I think of this general area here, and you go to the clergy and you say, I'd like to get, all the people who want to come to church and can't. And they say, okay, great. How do I do that? Well, I get them all on headsets. And you go, give me the look, right? It's like, okay, yeah, but they can still do the stuff with the desktop, and the people who can will. And it also broadens your reach because you could be the person who's got that best sermon and the whole nation could follow you. So those things exist, but yeah, headsets are still the issue.
That's it's sad because as I mentioned, it's they can be and are when they're not being the Pappy Van Winkle of headsets, cheaper than an iPad.
Yep.
And as a follow up to that, also, have you found or gotten feedback from I don't know, kids in grade school, high school, even early college, like I mean, this technology is not foreign to them, right? I mean, houses of worship, it's it could be foreign, they might not know, but if it's plug and play, you put it on your head and it works, and there's two buttons, it's easier to use, there's no doubt about that.
That's right.
But especially with students, you're giving them an iPad. Okay, that's old news. My dad has an iPad, he uses it for work. They're used to using headsets for gaming. Do you think that bridges the gap and makes it kind of a cool way to educate folks?
It can. One of the things that's interesting about anything of this technology is, especially on consumer headsets, where it's like, is it gaming, gaming, gaming? And that's where you get to the kids, right? That you kind of say, they're going to just eat this up. And so whether it's going to be doing Beat Saber or doing something like or Vader Immortal, or Half-Life, um, those things are going to draw people in. And so what's going to be different from a parent, I imagine, is going to be not being a parent. Is if I get my kid an iPad, there's the view of they can do the web, they can do their homework and things along those lines. If I give them a headset, is that like giving them a NES? Is it like giving a PS3 or PS5 or whatever it is now? That is, I think, part of the issue of just saying, okay, the headset, is that the same as an iPad? I don't know if that is to a parent yet. If it gives me access, and it will be actually, I mean, I have access to things through that, is I can do training. I think that you're starting to see much more of those either educational offerings or things where I can go in. And in fact, what you'll find is that the immersion does a couple of things for you. It actually takes all those other things out of the way to let you focus on something. So the person who's going in and learning the ABCs or learning how to do something, that's what they're doing at the time. And that's kind of neat that you can be really focused, get what you want, and be out and done, other than, how you doing with your homework? I'm doing okay. And while they can see all these other things going on, whether it's TV or the game on the console or things like that, you're in. And so that, I think, is a big help if we had the headsets and we continued to get this software being poured in to the to the whole offerings that are happening, for um, for education. And the same is true with, let's go and think about just training for you know professionals. Um, we did some work that allowed someone to first see how a particular procedure was being done. In this case, it was something having to do with, um, say, cleaning a hospital room when a patient was discharged. We had 6 cameras around, and some of them were VR 180 and some of them were 360, and the whole thing was captured. Somebody could watch that again and again, get it, and then go in there, and then simulation wise, another part of Glimpse had done some things saying, okay, now let's practice that. And that act of being able to do those same things, that muscle memory that you learn when you go to real life, you say, I've been here, I've done this. And that's something you're not going to get from flat video. I mean, the DIY on YouTube is great, but it's still perception. You have to go from I'm seeing it to encapsulating it, where inside VR, when you do it, you just feel like you do it. And then the same is true when it comes to, and this is where I love the VR video work, is when you're in there and you've been there, your brain remembers it as an experience. I had been in a situation where when I first put VR work in. It was actually something done by, let's see, I'm trying to think. It was photogrammetry, where someone had come into San Francisco and done the Cliff House, or not the Cliff House, the beach chalet, which had these beautiful murals and things along those lines in it. I had put this headset on, and being it was fully to scale, I was talking to the people outside the headset saying, I know this place. And I went running actually to another part of that room. Luckily, I was in a big warehouse and there was enough room for me to run. And I ran over to this one spot and I said, in this spot here, there's a scale model of San Francisco, of um, of the park. And lo and behold, it was there. And so my brain said, I've been here. I know it's here. I went there. It was there. So that experiential side of VR, whether it's I see something and when I later see it, I remember it because I've been there, or the same thing is if I've been in real life and gone in, then that follows through. And so those are the things that, from a learning point of view, from whether it's children, whether it's professionals, um, it's just so strong of a learning mechanism. Um, that I can't wait. I mean, I'm still, I'm anxious. You can tell, like the passion is there to be able to just get this stuff out there because it really does make a difference. Other than just either book learning or just watching videos, you just get it.
And I mean, we'll wrap up after this last question because I've kept you longer than I keep most guests because it's fascinating and so many things that you're working on. I mean, again, I'm going back to your early career. You worked for IBM. You
Mhm.
saw the adoption of computers, PCs, and then now they're in everyone's home, and we have 7 monitors. And what is it frustrating as someone who's in technology and who's been in technology to have the hardware hold up this amazing technology and software?
It is. Um, it's harder because I mean, there's a little bit of Cassandra syndrome in here, a little bit of knowing what should be there and just not being able to stop it from happening, right? And so in this case, you know it's coming, and it's actually impatience more than anything else. It's it's there, and something is just preventing it from getting there. I think that's where the frustration is. Um, but then that's timing too. I mean, I think the part of it is if you're really watching those things, then what you're doing is you see that that's happening, you see that there's a delay, and you start working on something that you need to be working on as well. So when that frees up, the rest of the stuff is there to catch up. I mean, I'm always the positive that way. It's like, you never can predict all of these things, but I know that stuff is coming. Is there frustration on the hardware? Yeah, there is. But you know what? When that hardware comes, it's going to be better. So am I doing the things that are going to make my video look better on that new hardware? Yeah, I'm doing that stuff now. So, yep, it'll catch up, but we'll be there when it gets there.
Well, you're a great anticipator, so it's good that you're working on the software and technology to anticipate the hardware coming out,
Great, thanks.
and hopefully they get to scale and can meet the demand.
Yep.
Um, where can you be found? Where can Pagoni be found? Where can Glimpse Group be found? Very important because want people to work with you.
You bet. So PagoniVR.com, and that will take you to a site that's currently getting updated yet again.
It's
But
beautiful as is, I'll tell you. It's very nice. It's a great site.
thanks. Um, let's see, and the Glimpse Group. So it's theglimpsegroup.com, and you'll find some really interesting groups there. I'm really surrounded by some really smart technical people, some great marketing folks. But we are in AR, we are in VR. We're mixing the two together, and it's really a group that leans on each other. And that's another thing that drew me to the Glimpse Group. So you'll find that. You'll see that if you go to theglimpsegroup.com, you'll get to see some of those interactions of how one technology seems to also show up in one of the other subsidiaries.
That's awesome, Jimmy. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing everything. I look forward to all the feedback and comments we get, and thank you for being flexible on my technical difficulties. But
Okay, not a problem. I've been there.
yeah.